Welcome to Comic Book Theater with your hosts, JR and the War Dog.
What is up, Comic Book Nation? This is the War Dog. I'm here with my main man, JR. What is going on, JR?
What's up, War Dog? How's it going?
It's going great, brother. It's going great. Another awesome podcast. We got two awesome guests. First up with us is Chris Pennybacker. What's going on, Chris?
What it do, though, War Dog? What's happening?
What it do, brother? What it do? And our second guest is Mr. Jeffrey Beebe. Jeff, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on?
So today we're going to talk a little X-Men, some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If we got some time, we're going to talk a little Spider-Man. John, why don't you give us a heads up on what's going on in the news today, brother?
So this is what I've been reading online lately, is quite a bit of changes in the works in the X universe right now. Anybody that's been paying attention over the past day or so has seen that Rob Liefeld is coming back and creating a new character come April called Major X. And also, Major X is going to be hailing from an alternate universe called the X-Sistence, which is totally 90s. That's Rob Liefeld 90s goodness right there. The other thing that's happening major that's causing a bit of a stir in the internet community as far as the X universe goes is Shade, the first drag queen X-Men. And so with that kind of controversy swirling, I want to get your guys' opinions on where the X universe is going. We all know where it's been, and we know the history of the X universe as far as being before its time, as far as social issues go, as far as issues of equality with folks go. I'll throw it to you, Chris, first, if you don't mind here. You got opinions on what's coming out from Rob Liefeld and Shade, and you can let us know what you think about either one or both.
Right on. Well, to be honest, I was kind of thrown for a loop whenever I heard today, actually, about the drag queen character. Like, I had no idea. But however, be as it may, I kind of feel like, honestly, with where that character is concerned, I kind of feel like it's kind of like more of the same with X-Men, where they had Iceman come out fairly recently as gay, but also more about just the history of X-Men itself. You know, whenever X-Men started, it was kind of like a parallel to the civil rights movement. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, I just kind of feel like it's just more of the same. And so I kind of wonder if longtime fans of X-Men will feel any real, like, you know, hey, that's awesome, or if they're just going to look at it like, I've kind of been there, done that with Marvel. But I mean, I kind of get where they're coming from with it. Any kind of personal feelings aside, whatever, I get where they're coming from. I just kind of wonder if, you know, how well it's going to do. Whereas also outside of X-Men, but with Marvel in general, few years back, they kind of had a change with some of the main characters. Like with Hulk, he became a alien that was also an alien boy that turned out to be gay or something. But they kind of shelved those ideas because they just weren't profitable. So I kind of wonder if it's going to be kind of like, the same aspect with that. If people are just not really going to seem to care, because if someone is kind of feels like that, there are those comics out there that gives those people a sense.
Yeah, they cater to that crew. That's I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder if they're going to be caught on to this, mainstream character in a pretty big title, if they're going to know about it or if they're even going to care. But that's kind of like where I feel about it. But like I said, I've only known about it today. I have, that's just kind of, it's kind of quick idea about it. But I've heard about Major X for a few, several days now, from hearing about it from a guy that works at my LCS. Whenever I picked up my pull list, me and him started talking about it because he mentioned it to me, because I was actually adding a thing to my list, and he said, "Oh, and he just assumed I was talking about Major X," and I was like, "What's Major X?" And he started telling me about it. Where I feel about that is I dig it because it's kind of nostalgic to a point with '90s, because it's like you said in the intro, it's very Liefeld, it's very '90s, it's very old school. You know what I mean? But whereas the design for the character, I kind of feel it's very Deadpoolish.
He definitely did borrow some elements from existing characters, it feels like to me as well. With Deadpool, some people have drawn the same type of lines going over to Judge Dredd or the Cyclops
Yeah,
uniform that he was wearing there for a little while. So yeah, I think he's borrowing from several places. The one thing that I do like that I read about Major X myself is that Rob Liefeld is not spilling all the beans right up front. He's letting some mystery kind of be there. Yes, he's telling us that he's from an alternate existence called the Existence, with that X hyphen that he absolutely loves to do with everything X-Men related that he's ever done ever. And so I'm cool with that. But yeah, he's borrowing some, like you said, some Deadpool in there for sure. That light in the center of his chest kind of gives an Iron Man feel a little bit too. It's definitely something that's kind of like a hybrid character, I think. BB, what do you got? You got any opinions on Major X or Shade?
Well, I think it'll be very interesting to see where Liefeld goes with Major X. One thing that I got from reading the article was Liefeld sounds really excited about it, and that gets me excited about the character, because like I see him get bashed a lot, and everybody likes the foot, like he can't draw feet, likes the joke, and I mean it was even in Deadpool and everything, which was hilarious. But like I actually like Liefeld. Like I mean, there's a lot of stuff he's done that I'm a big fan of. I've got quite a bit of his stuff. I'm a big Liefeld fan, and it'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes with it and where he takes the character. So I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. As far as the shade goes, if there was ever a line you were going to introduce a drag queen character to, X-Men would definitely be it. I mean, not
Right.
only for the name alone, but like Pennybacker was saying, with X-Men and how they paralleled like the civil rights, and that's the whole basis of the X-Men, being an outsider but being able to understand that you're special and you can be part of a team and you're all different but you're all the same. Like, so I get that. What I just heard about it today as well, so this is my just initial reaction to it. But you read the headline and of the article, oh, they're introducing a drag queen character to the X-Men. And my initial thought, my knee-jerk reaction is there really a need for that? Is there really a call for that, or is that just the sign of the times? Like, we got to put that in there. We got to put that out there. But after reading the article, it sounds like there are quite, they're talking about, the girl who's drawing it. It's talking about getting fan art and even sculptures and stuff made by fans from that one appearance of Shade before. So it sounds like there is actually a market for it. And if there's one thing I will always wholeheartedly support, it's making money. I mean, if there's a market out there for it, that's the whole point of putting out a product and selling it. Make that money. So if people want it, it's gonna sell. I mean, like anything going on nowadays, obviously Marvel's gonna throw their hottest artists at it and get a bunch of covers. So I mean, you're gonna have the numbers are gonna be boosted on collectability from artists alone. But I do like the fact that it's a new character. It's Shade. It's not like, hey, here's Hulk in purple fishnets. Like that would really upset me. I'm real big on that. Like I hate it when they take a character that I know and I love and I've grown up with and means something to me, and they're like, hey, by the way, Iceman's gay. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Since
that's
when,
fine.
right?
Right, exactly. I'm like, yo, that's not, fucking hashtag not my Iceman like that. Like, when did this come about? So that's, I mean, if you're gonna do that, that's fine. I mean, I understand it. Create a new character and you're putting it in an existing universe and see how it does. I mean, maybe there's a market for that. I mean, I personally don't really have an interest in that, but again, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, in all reality, anything to keep the love of comic books alive. And if you're bringing in new readers and you're introducing people to the hobby and to such a great art form, like it's all positive, it's all good.
Right. So, War Dog, you want to weigh in with us on this as well? I know that we've talked privately about Major X and Shade as well. My feelings as far as how I feel about Rob Liefeld. His art really doesn't do it for me. But in that same way, I view it as not my responsibility to rain on someone else's parade. If you enjoy Rob Liefeld and you want to collect Rob Liefeld, everything that he's ever done, man, more power to you. Just like BB was saying, man, if it's going to bring more eyes to collecting comics, to reading comics, man, absolutely more power to him. So, War Dog, how do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I mean, I understand the whole argument about the Liefeld artwork, but Liefeld's been a great creator as well, and that kind of gets lost with all the little jokes that get prodded at him. I mean, he's created Cable, he's created Deadpool. These are characters that a lot of us love. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this new character has. I hope he still has the same moxie that he had when he was younger. And this character is as cool as Cable and Deadpool. If that's the case, then I'm stoked. I can't wait. As far as Shade goes, I think BB said it best. I mean, if it brings new readers to the comic, then I'm all for it. To me, I love comics. I want to see comics going on for as long as possible. I hope my kids can go to the comic book store and buy comic books. And if that brings more people and more money, like we've talked before, John, it's all about market value, right? I mean,
It is.
They need to sell comics, and the market's going to determine whether or not people actually care about it.
Right. And to echo the sentiment that you guys have said here, I think I've made it pretty well known through the comic book communities as far as Facebook goes, as far as any interactions that I have with folks, that I'm just about as big of a free market purist as it gets. So, like you guys are saying, if somebody makes money at doing it, they're not physically harming anyone else while doing it. they're not stealing from somebody else. They're not taking advantage of someone else in a way that would be immoral, then yeah, I'm all for it. Now, with Shade, I have to admit to you guys, I question how much of a market there is for drag queen fandom. Now, having said that, everybody knows at least one drag queen, and that would be RuPaul. Now, there have been some speculation that maybe this character was based loosely on RuPaul, but that's kind of neither here nor there. I still kind of question how much of a market that would bring in. So, and there again too, what's that cross section between comic book fans? And I know you don't have to be a drag queen to be a fan of that form of entertainment, but still, I think it's a valid question to ask at least. And I think the market eventually will end up answering it for us. How many people out there are going to be swayed? Either that or Shade will fade into the background like many, many other X-Men characters have in the past. And you might only see Shade once a year in a crossover somewhere or something like that. Anybody else have any more thoughts on the X universe before we I've got like I said, I've got another hot topic here I want to talk to you guys about that I think you guys are interested in.
Real quick, I think people are gonna like the idea of Shade. Like, I mean, whether you're in that camp or not, but a lot of people are gonna like the idea of Shade. But that was like I said, that was my initial reaction. Like, is there really a calling for this? I mean, I would be very interested to see if Shade as a character lasts past 12 issues, like as a solid, as a solid reappearing character, or if it's going to be just every once in a while comes into the story. My guess is probably not. I mean, on principle alone, you could throw any artist you want on the covers, and I'm still not going to buy them. Like, it's just not of interest to me personally. That's my own thing. And I mean, if that's your thing, I mean, that's cool. I fully support that. But I would be interested to see if it lasts more than 12 issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a valid point there too. Now, of course, we all reserve the right to change our opinions on them based on how the artists and writers treat them. Because let's be real here, there have been many characters that initially people thought would be compelling that were dead ends. Marvel did a whole new universe back in the 80s that they thought was really going to revolutionize everything, and that the old superheroes might even fade away. And now you can't give away Marvel new universes unless if the cover artist was an artist of some note. If Todd McFarlane did a cover in one of them, or Jim Lee did a cover in one of them, or some such thing.
Yeah, they seem really good about writing a synopsis like online that makes you want to go and buy it. Like, oh, this sounds like it's going to be a great story, and then you get a hold of it, you read it, and it's like that's not what I was hoping for. And then yeah, after that, it
Bait
becomes
and switch.
only those collectible artists, like you're saying. People are only grabbing those issues because of the artist and not because of the actual story itself.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that is a good place to kind of end that part of our show on as far as the X universe. What I'm really curious from a couple of shellheads that we have with us here is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot that by all accounts is going to be happening this year. So again, we're all familiar with how the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came into being. We're familiar with the 90s cartoons, the comic books, the live action, then the CGC reboot. So this is a question that I have, and really because you guys I would consider to be super fans basically of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think for sure. Why do you think that the franchise needs a reboot? In other words, give me some of the positives from the franchise as it is currently, but then also what were some of the negatives from the franchise? I know what my opinions on some of the negatives were, but I really want to hear it from Shellheads for sure.
Well, the interesting thing about the Turtles is it just doesn't die. Like there's been so many different iterations. It's been cut, sliced, chopped so many different ways, and it just like Turtles, it has a staying power for some reason. And I can't put my finger on what it is, but for some reason, but I mean, there's a magic to the Ninja Turtles, like it just doesn't die. I mean, after that live action, who could have foreseen it ever surviving that horrendous show? But it did. It's still around. And like even now, like we joke about it over in the Turtle Lounge, but like the new cartoon, The Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I mean, even my son who's hardcore into Ninja Turtles with me, like he can't stand that show. He doesn't want nothing to do with it. But like Chris Pennybacker and I have talked about, it but for somebody out there, like that's their introduction, that's their Ninja Turtle, like that's what's bringing them into the world. I mean, I was an adult before I ever read the original comics, and it's so different than the fun campy TV show that I grew up with in the the cartoon from the early 90s, and it's so different than the rough tough dark movies from the 90s. But
Right.
it has a staying power.
Right. And what's good about it is what Jeff's getting at is that not is it just because that may not be our Ninja Turtles right now, but we still have that, and we can always go back to that anytime we feel like.
Well, I akin that to walking out of The Last Jedi. I walked out of it with my buddy, and the two of us went and saw it together. And we're both hardcore Star Wars guys, and we walked out, and he's just like, he was like, I wasn't feeling it. Like he had some, everybody's got their thoughts on this, that, and the other about the movie. But as we're walking out, there was these kids walking out with their dad, and like the look on their faces, they were so jazzed up. I was like, well, that it doesn't even matter what I disliked about that movie, or what, you know what I mean? Like for those kids, that just opened up a whole world to them that they're going to stay with that forever. And I feel the same way with the Ninja Turtles. Like that's not the rise of the Ninja Turtles isn't really my take on the Ninja Turtles. That's not my show, but for somebody out there, for some kids, that's gonna to start the love of the Ninja Turtles, and they're gonna dive into that universe, and who knows where they go with it.
So, real quick, on this latest incarnation of the cinematic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what were some of the things you guys thought that they got right with those turtles? Chris, do you mind answering that first? I'd like to get your take on what they did right with the Ninja Turtles.
With the two newest movies, I feel like they got right the four turtles themselves and their dynamics within each other, and also their gravitate, for lack of a better term, gravitational pull to their father master Splinter, and how Splinter is very systematic in their upbringing, and also keeping them trying to keep all four of them level headed.
So, in that way, you're saying that you feel like they really stayed true to the spirit of the characters themselves then, yeah?
Yes, and reason why I say that is because, especially in the second one, there's a scene where Leo feels like not only is his brothers questioning him, but he's also questioning himself as a leader of the team. And then he kind of not really goes to Splinter for advice, but he just kind of is like talking out loud, and then Splinter gives him that advice and gives him that confidence to keep his head up. And that was prevalent in a lot of the episodes of, I call it the Gen 1 cartoon from my childhood, where it always showed him and Raph kind of getting back and forth with each other, and then him saying something about Raph, and then Splinter always saying something positive, something inspirational. It kind of made me feel, it kind of made me remember those, and it was kind of nice to see, instead of just, because they could have done anything with that, but I feel like they really stayed with that, which was good to see.
Right on. So, BB, how do you feel they did with these last two movies? Is there anything that you would have changed?
Well, so the interesting thing with the new movies, the two latest movies, the Michael Bay movies, Chris Pennybacker and I went out to a con in Ohio and met Kevin Eastman and got signatures and everything, and then we went to his panel afterwards, and I completely I don't know. I completely misread the room and everything. Kevin Eastman's talking, and everybody's eating up his words, everything he's telling us about all this turtle history. And then Kevin Eastman himself threw it out there as a question. He was like, "So, how did everybody like?" Because he was talking about how he gets brought in for his opinion on all the new any new iteration of the turtles. They always like bring Kevin Eastman in, I guess, and kind of he puts his input in, and he asked the room, he was like, "How did everybody like the newest movies?" And I was the only one who was like, "Yeah." And everyone's like, the whole room, like 6, 7 dozen people in this room were collectively instantly angry. And you've never seen anybody pull their hand back so fast. I was like, ooh, I was alone in that room for sure. I love those movies. I absolutely love them. I mean, I grew up with Ninja Turtles. I'm a big turtle fan. My son just latched onto them at a very young age, so we've shared that together. And I love the Ninja Turtles, and seeing them on screen again for me was huge. And Chris Pennybacker and I were talking about it afterwards. We left the panel, we went out to lunch, and we were talking about it. And I think Chris said, one of the issues that he or a lot of people feel is like it was like they weren't the same turtles; they were too mature. But to me, and this is just me personally, but for me, that worked perfectly because I was introduced to them as a young kid, Saturday morning cartoons, watching these really young teenage turtles. I mean, I'm thinking like they're like 13. They're teenagers. They're goofy, and then the movies come out and they're a little more edgy, but they're still, it's like to me in the movies they're like 15, 16. It's like they're a little edgier, they're a little more adult, and as someone raising a teenager, you know what I mean? Like I can parallel to that, this I can do everything, I know everything, and the dad's like, oh, as a dad, or Splinter's like, you're not ready for this, trying to pull them back and keep them within their limitations. They were more like middle-aged teenagers. They're 15, 16, whereas in the movies they're far older. They're 18, 19. You know what I mean? Like it was it just seemed like the natural progression. I would have been disappointed if it was like rehashing the same 90s turtles that we already seen. I mean, those were great and I love those movies, but I absolutely love, Casey Jones aside, I absolutely love the newest movies. I mean, I can't wait to see where they go with this reboot, which is funny because we were joking about it over at the Turtle Lounge. We were talking about it like, well, what are they going to do? Is it going to be more CGR? Are they going to bring back, I was like, Jim Henson's gone. Like, you can't do that over again. I was like, you know what? We haven't seen yet. I was like, I want marionettes, like Team America style marionettes would be hilarious. Or a Lego movie would be great. Like a Lego Ninja Turtle movie would be hilarious. That would be fucking funny to me.
Absolutely. I would love to see that. A Lego Turtles movie would be awesome. That is an awesome call. But the one thing about the Turtles movies that really stood out to me was how cool they made Raphael. Raphael was always one of my favorite characters, and I mean, just watching those movies, I just fell in love with his bad attitude and everything about him. And like you said too, with Leonardo, I mean, the way that he had to become the leader, it wasn't just like, all of a sudden we assume he's the leader. He had to convince all the others that he was the leader. So, that's my take on that. JR, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I was going to actually say here that you're talking about it being a feel of an older teens. To me, it actually just felt like updated teens, because none of us are in our teens
I can see
anymore,
that.
but like you said before, we act like we're in our teens a little bit sometimes. But you didn't say that. That was my interjection.
Every day though.
What what it really ends up being at the end of the day is, just like anytime you reboot something, you have to update, you have to make it contemporary for the teenagers that are in today's society. And let's be real, man, being a teenager today, being a 13-year-old today, it feels like the equivalent of being an 18-year-old when we were that age. And again, I'm probably a little older than most of you guys, except for War Dog, because he is old as dirt. That's right. You heard it here
John,
first.
screw you. I'm
War
not that
Dog is
old.
old. Anyway, but you get what I'm saying, though, that
Yeah.
when we were kids, you were told, hey, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. You better learn to do math. Our kids are raised during a point in time that email is too slow.
That's true, yeah.
An instant message is on the verge of being too slow.
So you're gonna have a movie with 4 turtles, all faces planted in their iPhones, texting each other.
That could be the next iteration of Raphael, is that he's busy checking his Facebook status all the time and not wanting to be bothered by the other three. And Mikey is likely ordering on the Domino's app this time. That kind of stuff. All of those things are things I fully expect in the next reboot myself. So another question as far as the movies go here, what's an ideal situation? You guys, lifelong turtle fans, what would be an ideal situation for the reboot? And BB, you said that you were really satisfied with this last incarnation, except for maybe Casey Jones.
Yeah, they screwed Casey Jones up.
I'm curious who you guys would maybe want to cast to play somebody or to voice somebody. And, let's go crazy here. If it's somebody from the past, there's no way they could do it now. Just your dream casting for this. BB, who would you want to play April O'Neil?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. I like Megan Fox a lot. I'm a big Megan Fox fan, so like that was satisfying for me. I know a lot of people hated on that, but in reality, like we were just talking about this, but for the new movie, I mean, with CGRs and stuff the way they are now, I mean, we were talking about like what villains it would be. Like, are you really going to rehash the Shredder again? We've seen Krang now. If you did the Rat King, I think like with CGI now, I mean, you can make an amazing Rat King, commanding an army of rats and just CGI thousands of rats, at his bidding. If Rat King and Baxter Stockman comes back and does the Mousers and that's on screen, you could literally cast anybody or write any story you want, and I wouldn't even care. You could have my money. It's all good.
Now that part, I just want to make this known for this podcast. The Mouser part, that was my idea.
Yes, controversy. We like controversy around here.
Oh yeah, but fully. I mean, Chris hit it out the park. I mean, you put the Baxter Stockman and the Mousers. I mean, that would be amazing to see on screen. And we're getting so much comic book goodness on the big screen now. It's incredible things that we never thought we'd see. You know, as a kid, these characters you love, we never thought we would see this on the big screen, and they're doing it in a big bad way, and it's just epic. I love it.
Yeah.
But full props to Penny
Yeah,
Maggot for the Mousers. I will concede that for sure.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Bow down. Bow. Thank
But
you.
if they knock it out of the park with this one, then that could set it up to keep going with the turtle movies. And I mean, if the next movie we could get the mutanimals and everything rolled in and just really open up the turtle universe, I mean, that would be incredible. I mean, who knows how far it could go? Because turtles just it never dies.
It never dies, and they have so many characters that have. I mean, they've barely touched the tip of the iceberg on the villains that they could have on screen. Like just now, considering we just now got Bebop and Rocksteady, and I mean, and that only took like damn near 30 years to get.
Far too long.
You know, I mean, they could do so much stuff. Like heck, if they even wanted to, go with some big nards, they could do the invasion of the Triceratons. They could make a solid trilogy out of the next reboot if they played their cards right.
So would you guys be opposed to them doing some type of crossover event in the future? I know, and this is slightly off topic, but there's rumors that they're going to do a G.I. Joe Transformer crossover at some point. Is there another film franchise or another franchise you guys would like to or mind seeing them cross over with in the future?
Well, Turtles have had so many crossovers throughout the course of the comic book history that you could do a whole bunch of different crossovers, and hardcore Turtle fans won't be mad at it at all. Whether or not that'll grab the attention of the general public, that's a little different because there's so many villains in the Turtle universe. You could, like Chris was saying, I mean, there's so many you could choose from, but how many are your everyday average moviegoer going to latch onto? You know, I mean, most people are only going to remember a few episodes from that 90s cartoon. You know, how many can you really go with? But it'll be interesting to see what they do because there's so many characters in that universe. And with the new IDW run, they've introduced new characters to the universe and whole new storylines. Like, are they going to go with all the old school characters? Are they going to bring in some of the new people like a Lopex and like, I mean, are they going to bring in some of the new characters? It'll be really interesting to see how far they expand it.
So what's your issue with Casey Jones? I mean, Green Arrow playing Casey Jones, isn't that like ideal?
Oh, it just the thing with Casey Jones is I mean, he wasn't the Casey Jones like that from the comic book. I mean, when he showed up on screen, he was this cop, and then he gets suspended because he let Shredder go, and he didn't let him go, but Shredder got away, and then he had one scene in the entire movie where he shows up in the mask, and they do that stupid Stacy Moans joke, which was so epically lame. And then after that, you never see him with the mask again. I'm like, where's the golf bag with the whole implement of garage found weapons? Like, because that's stuff that we did as a kid. You know what I mean? I got a baseball bat and a golf club and a cricket bat, and like, I'm gonna go out and fight crime.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Casey Jones in the comic book, you never seen him with, or in the earlier series when we were kids, you never seen him without that hockey mask on. And yeah, I guess they had to show Green Arrow's face. I can't think of what his name is at the moment, but they had to show his face for all the ladies. But yeah, I can see exactly where you're going with the Casey Jones thing.
Well, it seems like they had the one scene with the mask on just to establish, hey, this is in fact Casey Jones, and then after that, you never saw it again. It was like a completely different character.
A book Shredder from Hell came out, and it looked really interesting. Had some really great covers. You guys are probably the experts on this. What are your guys' thoughts on that book? So that, should I buy it? Is it good?
Dude, call your LCS, see if they have it. If it's snowing, downpour rain, go pick it up. You will not be disappointed.
Well, you almost get hesitant on some new stuff that comes out. There's so many covers coming out. It's like they're really pushing it hard. Is this going to be any good or is it not? And Chris and I ordered a bunch of different covers. There's so many good ones out there. And then I got my regular cover from my LCS, brought it home. That was the first book I read out of my stack, and from start to finish, I was completely blown away. The writing is excellent. The story is great, and it leaves you wanting more. I mean, when I hit that last panel, I don't want to give away any spoilers or anything. But when I hit that last panel,
Absolutely,
definitely left me wanting for more. But the art on every single page is it's gorgeous. The whole book is extremely well done, not just from like a Super Turtle fan point of view, but just the art from start to finish is amazing. The flow of the book, it has a very natural feel. It's great. It's a really good read, and it's a new. There's, like I said before, there's been so many iterations of the Turtles. It's like, what else can they do? And then this was just out of this world. It was brand new. It was something to get excited about, and it left you wanting more. I can't wait for number 2 to come out. I'm super excited.
the art and the layout of that book was phenomenally done. It's on par with everything Joe Benitez does with Lady Mechanica. If you're familiar with the layouts and the page spreads, it's every single page. The amount of detail on that is on par with the cover itself. It's beautifully rendered. Every bit of it is just wonderful. It's so worth the cover price and more, honestly. Like it's and like what Jeff just said, because of what can you do with the Ninja Turtles that technically whatever. It's very original, and it's fantastic. And as soon as I was done with it, I needed number 2 so bad. Like I was willing to punch my grandma in the face.
Seeing that last panel, I was ready to punch Chris's grandma's in the face too. So
Oh, behave.
Well, yeah, that's how she does her, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, baby.
nice.
So we talked a ton of Turtles. John, what's the next topic that you think we need to discuss before we wrap this one up?
Real quick before we go that way, I got one last question for our turtle experts here.
Yeah.
I got to know, if you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, does that by default also make you a Daredevil fan?
Oh, man.
That's actually the response I was looking for right there was just the crickets. So that's fine, guys. That's fine. I know
No.
that was lame.
Actually, truth be told, I have always enjoyed Daredevil, and actually before Jeff flew out to what he likes to call the TurtleCon that was in Ohio in September, where we met Eastman, and Eastman was going to have his panel. Whenever he came out the night before, me and Jeff were talking and just getting super pumped up and all that stuff. He actually mentioned, he said, I wonder if in his panel, if he's going to elaborate any on the rumor about the Daredevil thing, whatever. And boy howdy, that was like the opening thing of his panel. Like he was just sitting up there talking about just dropping knowledge bombs on this crowd of a bunch of uber nerds, just mouth agape and drooling at every little bit of things that he was saying. and he just openly said it. And then Jeff looked at me, he goes, and there it is. You know what I mean? It's like, there it is. You know, to the point. To the point that like it even if you didn't really know the rumor, it's in front of you, like it's clear as day. The foot, the hand, stick, splinter, like it's as clear as day. Nobody, like, I never picked up on it until I was at that convention.
Yeah, there was a lot of hardcore turtle guys in that room that their minds were blown by the stuff Kevin was dropping.
Oh yeah.
But no, I don't think you have to default be a Daredevil fan. I mean, I am a huge Daredevil fan, as well as the Turtles. But by default, like, you don't have to like one to necessarily like the other. The Turtles have their own thing going on. But I love the intercontinuity between the two of them. You know, that's just great.
All right. So since War Dog was asking us to transition away from that, I appreciate you guys answering that and not making me look as stupid as I felt for asking it after I asked it. And we got the crickets from there. But real quick, this one is something that hit. Actually, we're recording this on the 19th. This was posted that I'm aware of on the 19th from George Perez. As far as, I'm not going to read the whole statement that he made through his Facebook, but essentially, due to some of the health issues that he's been having recently, diabetes, heart ailments, he's having some vision issues as well. It's actually going to force him to retire at the end of 2019 from attending cons regularly, except for 2. But the other thing, and this is the one that's pretty much effective immediately, is he's retiring from creating any new comic books at all. So with something like that, I think it's something that we really do need to address here, because that's huge news to the comic book community. But also, I don't want to call it a farewell tour, but if you check out what his upcoming cons are for this year, he's saying yes, he will attend, he will sign, and he will do photo ops for free, but he's limiting himself to 5 con style sketches per con that have to be reserved within the first 30 days. So he's really lightening his load. Now, the other thing that's great about a guy like George Perez, too, is that his appearance fees, and he's been doing this for a while, this isn't news to anybody, but his appearance fees all get donated to charity, as well as what he makes from the con for doing the sketches there at the con. That all goes to charity. He's doing this as gracefully as I can imagine any creator or artist could do this, in that he's kind of saying goodbye to the majority of his fans, because if you're not able to make it to, I believe that it is Dragon Con is one, and I believe the other one is Fetish Con.
Yeah, baby.
I'll have to relook that part up, but there are only going to be 2 ones that he still intends to go every single year to regardless. But the rest of them, if you don't live near either one of those cons, most of us aren't going to get the chance to go by and say hi and say thank you to him in person like we all would like to. I'd kind of like to get your guys' thoughts on that, and especially with this in the light of, we just lost it. It's been a couple of months, but still, in the relative scheme of things, we just lost Stan Lee. And while it was not completely unexpected to lose Stan Lee, it was still a shock to the community. And there's a lot of people that kept putting it off, saying Stan's going to live forever. I would definitely like to get your guys' thoughts on George Perez and the work that he's done, as well as what you think this means for the comic book community as a whole. Where do you think we go from here? Who is going to be able to step in and fill his shoes, or is that even possible?
I think the shoes that he's going to leave behind is, I mean, yeah, they're going to be empty, but they're going to be full of history. And like Stan Lee, everybody can say that, they thought that Stan was going to live forever, but reality is nobody does. And everyone knew how old he was, and everybody knew because it was put out on Front Street about Stan Lee's health also. One can prepare for somebody's passing all the live long day, but once it happens, you find yourself you find out, in fact, you were never prepared for it to begin with. And I think the community itself is still reeling from the Stan Lee passing, and it's going to be for a while because it was Stan Lee. But George Perez, where he's concerned, I kind of feel like his legacy is going to remain, and it's going to be a very happy one, and one that's full of respect. I kind of feel like where the community goes from here is we're going to, lack of better terms, rally around the ones that remain in their old ages. I kind of feel like we're going to, really gravitate to those and really, lift them up, if you will. And what sucks for me, being in the armpit of America that is Dayton, Ohio, I'm nowhere near any of the cons that he's going to be going to in 2019, and that's a shame because to me, George Perez is one of my favorites. Every work he did on Thanos, outside of Ninja Turtles, Thanos is my jam-a-lam. And every time he did Thanos, like, it's exactly how you would think Thanos would look. His facial expressions would be always looking fierce, always looking tough, always looking mean. You know what I mean? And it's a shame that I'm just never going to be able to say thank you like I was to Kevin Eastman. It's a shame, but however, be as it may, I'm glad that he's going to go out on his own terms, and those terms are good because if he has all these ailments and all these health problems, it should be on his call. It shouldn't go the way that it did with Stan, where people were more or less forcing him to go to these things and him just deteriorating in front of the public eye.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I say, this definitely, from what he's saying on Facebook, it appears that he's going to, I mean, again, he very poignantly says he's not looking for pity by saying this or anything like that. He's very grateful to the public for what they've allowed him to do and those type of things, and for a public statement that obviously was thought out and really went over it, really fine tooth comb there. I believe I mean I only hope that I would have that much grace when my time would come. Not that I'll ever even remotely come close to that level of success, but for what he has done and the way he's chosen to. The other thing that I'm with here is he's choosing to do this. He, like you said, it kind of felt there towards the end like Stan was being pushed and poked and prodded a little bit more than any human being should ever have to endure. And it sounds like George is not, it's not even going to be an option. BB, what do you think on this subject of George
I actually
Perez?
think it's a good thing. I mean, I understand fully understand people's emotional reaction. But the truth is, we're not. I mean, he's not going to be creating anymore, but we're not losing him. He didn't pass away. I think it's great that, I mean, he's given us so much that we all love. And now he can retire. He can retire on his own terms, and he's doing it for the right reasons. I mean, you got health issues, vision issues, you shouldn't have to keep pushing yourself. Go out on the right foot, and he can sit back and he's going to get so much more. I mean, we all love him, but he's going to get even more love and support after the fact, and he can enjoy that in his old age. I mean, there's too many artists who have passed on, and their work is appreciated far more after their passing than when they were alive. He can sit back and he can enjoy that. Unfortunately, like was said, I mean, most of us are not going to get the opportunity to ever meet the man and talk to him and thank him personally. But he's going to see that. He's going to know how much his work meant to everybody. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a really great thing that he's going to get to experience.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think for creators and artists, the idea of something like, for lack of a better term, a farewell tour is actually a good thing, and letting people know in advance, like he's letting folks know in advance, it just helps us to cope with, like you say, he's not dead,
Oh, he's
he's
still
not
with
dying.
us.
It's going to take a little more effort for us. Yeah, he's still with us. It's just going to take a little bit more effort for us to get to see him. And we're going to have to purpose for it more if we're going to as well, which is not necessarily there again, too. We've talked in the community about people making trips for cons and stuff like that. And if you can do that, man, more power to you. Just a lot of us who collect on a budget and that kind of thing, it's just not always in the cards. War Dog, I think it'd be perfect for you to get the final word on this subject.
George Perez being at Dragon Con is pretty exciting because I live in Atlanta. So hopefully I'll have the opportunity to go and meet George Perez. I'm a fan of all artists, and it's sad to hear that he's having health issues. But I, like the other guys said, I'm glad that he's going out on the note that he wants to. Hopefully everything works out well for him, and financially he's well, and physically he can rest, relax, and just enjoy the rest of his life. Really, hopefully that didn't sound bad, but with that being said,
No, I don't think it did.
with that being said, we have approached the hour mark. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Just real quick, I was just gonna throw out there to respond to JR's question of who's gonna fill George Perez's shoes. I think it is really cool that, I mean, George Perez in the comic industry, the comic book world, is a godfather, and I think it'll be cool to see him, rest back on his laurels and watch a lot of these upcoming artists. I don't know who will fill his shoes, but I'm excited to see who that person will be. This is an amazing time for comics, and with Kickstarter and all the stuff we have going on, there's so many phenomenal artists that are breaking into the industry. It'll be really interesting to see what's coming around the bend. Are there any upcoming artists that anybody is particularly keeping their eyes on?
Yeah, Francesco Mattina.
Yeah, but that's for entirely different reasons, War Dog, and we all know it. If you're not familiar with that, check out the last podcast. You'll know exactly what War Dog's talking about.
Yes, and John, you haven't asked them about Darth Jar Jar yet. I'm really curious to see what their thoughts are on Darth Jar Jar.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so guys, check this out. This is a well-known, or at least I'm attempting to make it well-known, conspiracy theory about Darth Jar Jar in the prequels for Star Wars. Okay, so this is the premise. Basically, is that original plans for the prequels were to mirror the original 3 Star Wars episodes. At some point, George Lucas got cold feet and pulled Jar Jar Binks from being the big bad behind everything, and that's how we get Count Dooku. So my personal theory on that is we can blame the good old internet for that. That if we didn't have the burgeoning internet at the time, we would have Darth Jar Jar right now. And personal opinion here, I believe Darth Jar Jar would eclipse Darth Vader as the most hated, most villainous villain of all time ever. You heard it here first.
I'm actually a huge fan of this theory. I absolutely love the theory of Darth Jar Jar, and there's so many great fan theory videos out there that are super compelling that draw the lines that he was actually the idiot savant moving in the background, shaking and moving and setting the whole thing up. I'm a big fan of it. I like it. It's a fun fan theory that you can roll with.
Yeah, I actually was led on to this many, many years ago whenever I was in culinary school. A buddy of mine that I was in butchery with, he actually dumped it on me, and I just looked at him, stopped what I was doing. It felt like I stood there and stared at him with my eyes crossed for like 5 minutes. And I was just like, "Are you serious?" And he was like, and he said, "Yeah, just go onto YouTube." So whenever I was leaving, I went onto YouTube and I saw a clip of someone mash things together. And I actually saw a clip of George Lucas himself in front of storyboards talking with people. And he touched one of them and he says, and I'm quoting from this, he said, "Now remember, Jar Jar is the key to everything." And whenever I saw that, I was like, "Holy monkey."
I'm telling you, the more that you delve into it, and the one that introduced me was an 8-minute video that completely changed the way that I looked at the prequel trilogy completely. Now there again, I don't mind the prequel trilogy as much as many hardcore Star Wars folks do, but yeah, it completely changed everything for me. And honestly, just like that, I've said this, and if you listen to the last podcast, I went into it a little in depth about Yoda. Really, if the same treatment was given to Yoda that was given to Jar Jar, we would have never known Yoda as the Jedi Master that we know him today. There's no way, absolutely no way. The movie studios would have freaked out about it. You know, they're so conscious about those kind of things that you can't make a mistake anymore. Some of the most brilliant things that have ever happened in all of humankind were actually originally mistakes. And, you know, but people were allowed to make mistakes once upon a time. And now there's no room for mistakes whenever you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars at stake and people's careers at stake and stuff like that.
I think that's the difference between having puppets and having CGI. I mean, CGI is either good or is bad. You know, what makes the first 3 Star Wars movies really, or probably episode 4, 5, and 6, the most epic thing is that everything kind of looked real. Where when you got CGI, it looks a little fake. So of course, could you imagine Jar Jar if they had to do actual masks and rather than CGI? It might have been a little bit more intriguing of a character than what they ended up with after the first three or episodes. But with all that
Oh, I agree with that.
with all that said, I know you all agree with me. With all that said, we had some awesome guests today. We are over the hour mark, so we'll wrap this up. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jeff Beebe. This was awesome. I really, really enjoyed talking to you guys.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for inviting us, man. It was awesome.
All right, that's it. Peace out, everybody.